Well, John and Stephen both referenced triggering things. I have to tell you, this space is very, very special to me. Lorenzo and I are friends in the purpose of raising up our youth. And as my trigger, if you will, is the fact that I have two kiddos, a daughter who's an attorney now, she's 26, and a 22-year-old son who surprised us about 5 or 6 years ago and decided he wanted to go into the military. So Lorenzo has had my heart in that I'm like, what is he doing now? What is this terminology? And he's been my mentor and my friend, and my son Quaid is in his senior year at the United States Naval Academy. So suffice to say, some of this is very, very personal. And I'm grateful to be in space with each and every one of you today to talk about something so critical. I'm also curious to know who's in the room. First and foremost, we have a board member with us, my board member, Dr. Marcy Masamoto with us. Welcome, Marcy. Do we have any other board members? Do we have any other superintendents or principals? I feel like we had your shout out right away. Good. I know we have classroom teachers. I know we have some folks in our team that work with after school. And we have at least one person who works directly with our students through YLI. Excellent. Good. So glad to have such a great group of people helping raise up our children in community. I'll go ahead and get started. It is such a privilege to be here with you to talk a little bit about something I'm particularly passionate about, civic education. It's truly an honor to be here at this Educators Institute, where we get to dive into the heart of something so critical to our society, and that's civic education. I want to take a moment to thank all of the team members at Civic Education, John and Steve and Clene and many, many, many others that just do a wonderful job of keeping it present in our hearts and in our heads as we're working with our youth. And really to talk and focus today about what our students are doing, living, learning, feeling, experiencing, and matriculating up into their place in the world. We all know that civil discourse is the foundation of democracy. It's about exchanging ideas respectfully and ensuring everyone's voice is heard, allowing citizens to participate in shaping our future. I come to you today humbly with a tough question. How do we all think that's working for our youth? Think about it for a second. Do our students feel that their opinions matter? Can they trust that their ideas will be welcomed even if they're not mainstream? And here's the real kicker. Do they feel safe enough to speak up without fear of being bullied or brushed off? These aren't easy questions, but as adults in the room, as teachers, leaders, parents, and mentors, we've got to face them head on. I can tell you from experience, our children are anxious. They're navigating a world that seems more complex and overwhelming than ever before, and many are questioning if they truly matter in this big picture. In the last week or so, I've been meeting with some really bright kiddos who want to get into some really exceptional colleges. I, as sort of service to them, will spend some time with them. I'll learn a little bit about what they want for their bright futures. And if I feel comfortable in advocating for them, I'm going to write them a letter of recommendation. So I was meeting with a young girl named Audrey a week or two ago, and I knew her vaguely. I had seen her be captain of academic decathlon. I knew that she had won the math, this and that competition at her high school, Sunnyside High School. But when I said to her, in my first 20 minutes with her, in the first few seconds, I said, Audrey, I know a little bit about you, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about you? I really want to get to know you before I invest my name in a letter of recommendation for you. And she didn't speak. Instead, she reached down and she pulled out this painting. It was an extraordinary painting that still haunts me. It's on my phone, so if we're around and you want to see it, I'm happy to show it. I got her permission. It's filled with dark colors, and it's a picture of her home, and the ceiling is ripped open, and there's flames and there's ropes, and at the top of this chaos is a wrinkled up newspaper article, and it basically says news. And I said to her, what is this? Because, my first reaction was, wow, this is dark, and I'm a little worried about you, and we have mental health professionals available in school. And she said, well, I'm in my AP art class, and the teacher asked me to to paint my grief about leaving my childhood where I felt safe and entering the world of adult. And I literally could not speak for about 60 seconds. I was so blown away by, one, her intellect and talent, but secondarily, the depth of her anxiety about this transition that every one of our young children will go through. They will leave childhood and go into adulthood, and they are very, very anxious. I tell you that story because the weight of our work lives in me, and I know it does in each of you as well. So coming together in opportunities like this to think about how we can do our work better is really critical for each and every one of us. That is why civic education is so crucial. It's not just about teaching government structures or historical dates. It's about giving our kids the tools they need to find their voice, to stand tall in who they are, and to know deep in their bones that they belong. I believe that civic education begins as early as kindergarten. Yes, kindergarten, and continues through high school. In fact, every state includes civics and government in its social studies standards. Here in California, we have one of the most robust civic education programs in the nation. Students can even earn the state seal of civic engagement, recognizing their excellence and commitment to understanding and participating in civic life. So I'll bet you each of you in this room have representation or influence in various different school districts. In Fresno County, we have 205,000 students. We have about 11,000 of them in their senior year of high school. You have great influence. Since 2020, only 650 students in Fresno County have earned the state seal of engagement. I think that they're already doing civic education work, but they're not getting credit for it. So I really would put out a charge to you to say, hey, let's make sure they get the opportunity to be celebrated for their work. I am proud of that 650, but I'm absolutely convinced we can grow that. And when we do so, our nation will be better off for that. Here's the thing that state requirements only take us so far, though. It's the passion and purpose that you, the educators, bring to your classrooms that really ignites the spark of civic education. You are the ones who help students see that their voices matter and can drive change, that caring about others is not only noble, it's necessary. I bet each of you has a treasure trove of ideas for bringing civics to life in your classrooms, and I hope that today's session will add even more fuel to that fire. But if I may, I'd like to offer a few additional ways we can foster civic education, especially as we approach Election Day on November 5th. I have 3 of those ideas. First, your students get their hands dirty with some data. Have your students dig into youth voting trends. Let them figure out what makes young people show up at the polls, or importantly, what keeps them away. Then challenge them to create their own Get Out to Vote campaign. It's not just about learning the mechanics of democracy, it's about understanding the power of information and action. And this year, I'm really pleased to say that James Coos, who is our county clerk for elections, has made opportunities available at every single high school about how to engage kids, and in fact might even be able to employ them at, I think it's $16.82 an hour for the opportunity to be part of that experience. So I encourage you to get them involved as much as you can. Second, I'd encourage you to bring some real-world experience into the classroom. Invite a prominent community member into your classroom to share their civic journeys. Lorenzo comes to every invitation. So does Steve, so does John, and many, many others. Let your students ask them questions, learn their stories, and see firsthand how different perspectives shape our communities. And better yet, bring in multiple voices so that your students can compare, contrast, and understand how diverse viewpoints can all contribute to solving our common problems. And finally, there's one of my favorites. Have your students create a community map. Not just any map, but one that shows the strengths, the needs, and the potential of their very own neighborhoods. Let them loose to come up with solutions. And by the way, this isn't just an exercise. It's planting the seed that they can be part of the problem solvers in their communities. I think that when they create these maps, it's going to illuminate who's doing what, who are the cultural brokers, who are the champions in their community, where the assets lie, and I think they'll also be able to see how much we need each other to move forward. Some of the best civic lessons happen outside the classroom. Volunteering is where the rubber meets the road, whether it's helping a younger sibling with homework or serving meals at a local shelter. All of these experiences build empathy and a sense of responsibility that no textbook can match. And the data backs it up. Students who volunteer are more likely to graduate college and land a job. In fact, data shows that students who volunteer are 19% more likely to graduate from college and have a 27% higher chance of employment. And that's a win-win in my book. And back to all those letters of recommendation I write every year about this time, that civic engagement is often the difference maker. We know that we don't need brainiacs sitting in a room working by themselves in the future. We need them to work in community and solve problems. And so colleges more and more often are looking for that civic engagement. At my office, we're committed to fostering civic education too. Every spring, we host the You Matter Day at OK Produce. It's a day when students from all over Fresno County roll up their sleeves and make a real difference, assembling care kits for the real homeless youth in our community, packing food for hungry families, and so forth. It's civic education in action, and I'd love to see you and your students consider joining us next spring. At its core, civic education is about showing our students that they are the future leaders who will raise the bar, who will shape the community and our nation, and ultimately a world that values fairness, compassion, and the well-being of all people. As educators, you have the distinct honor and the tremendous responsibility of being the catalyst of that transformation. You are the ones who will guide our children as they learn to care more, do more, and become the citizens who leave no one behind. I know it can feel overwhelming at times, but remember this. I'm going to say that again. I know it can feel overwhelming at times. That's why I'm so glad you took a day away from your work to come and learn and grow together in this community, because it can be very hard work and very lonely at times even. But remember this, every time you encourage a student to speak up, every time you challenge them to think critically about their world, you're lighting a spark. You're helping them see that their voice, their vote, their vision for the future, it all really, really matters. My office is committed to supporting you in this critical work. We'll keep partnering with the great organizations like the Civic Education Center, because we know that what you do every day in your classrooms is nothing short of life-changing for our kids. So thank you. Thank you for your dedication to democracy, for believing in our students even when they don't believe in themselves, and for never, ever giving up on the idea that we can all make a difference. Together, you're not just teaching civics. We're raising a generation of engaged, empowered citizens who understand the power of their voice. And yes, my friends, it is how we might change the world. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave this with you. Awesome. You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.